This is Freeze, and you're watching Thorin and I would have been better than forgiven if I wouldn't get injured.
Right, this is going to be episode 11 of Elitists United with me and Veteran here. I'll give you a warning, fair warning. This is another episode about EU Masters. So all you fucking plebs who like all your teams with ridiculous names like Echo Fox and Optic Gaming, y'all can just fuck right off back to the LCS. Watch your dog shit no 131 ever under any circumstances, even when you have the strongest individual character in the game and your team can't win a team fight. Mother-loving ass region. There you go. That's the end of that segment. I've successfully met the obligation to be an elitist within the first 30 seconds. So, right, another thing, as we set up this episode, Veteran, so obviously, even within the context of talking about EU Masters, we've obviously tried to go with the winners here. We've got in InnerFlame, formerly of SK, and Dingtas back in the day. Now he's the Chief Gaming Officer over at Misfits. And we've got LIDER, who was the mid laner of the EU Masters winning Misfits Premier team. But he's already fucked up on his first media appearance, Veteran, because if anyone followed EU Masters, right, think about how hard it is to actually get a meme going about a tier 2 tournament. It's fucking hard to get people interested. So when you have memes going, I've told people this, memes aren't just jokes. They are like, basically they're spreading ideas around the world. So what you want to do is when you have a good meme, you got to ride it. Now, I know people go too far with that, like Broker Chat, and ride him into the fucking ground. And he's just like he's like the fucking Knights King of memes at this point, trying to raise them all from the dead with all of his dead warriors around. But much like that one, we wish he'd never speak during the whole series. So anyway, everyone's getting on this one. Right, the point I'm going to get to is this. LIDER could have started this episode by taking a nice sip of some blue liquid, in which case he would be branding, he'd be building towards something. People would comment. Every comment on YouTube would be about it. Every comment on the thread would be about it. He's fucked it up. He's just got an ordinary drink, and it's not even blue. Are you ready, guys? It's not even that it isn't even that drink. It's not even blue. He's fucked up all his branding right at the first chance he had to become a legit superstar. So you know what? Now you've got nothing going for yourself except playing mid lane, and you come from Europe. That you needed to separate yourself. We've already got all the good mid laners. What were you thinking? This is your chance. Come on, LIDER.
It was a huge mistake.
It's okay. It's okay. We can turn it around.
I think he's just timing it for the tournaments.
Right. He's making it like now there's hype. Like people want to see. Like this is what he should do now. I'll tell you the move you do now, LIDER. Is if you get into the LCS, LEC, now it's called. But if you get into it, right, here's what you do. At first, you don't come with the blue juice. You just use the normal one, right? And then when you lose, you go, oh, guess I better break out my secret weapon. That's when you announce the sponsorship. The sponsorship comes in. That's when you get your first win. That's how you market. That's all the melting pot. Everything together at once there. So no, let's actually... It's not bad, is it? It's not bad. So let's actually start off here. And let's talk about this aspect. So I remember when we did the episode, Veteran, one very distinct and clear theme from all the people on that episode, I'm holding everyone accountable for this, was they all said that the whole tournament was ruined by Mad Lions not being able to get Yopper into get his visa, which meant that the top half of the bracket was a load of bullshit, and that whoever won that bottom half of the bracket between Fnatic and SK, they were definitely going to win the tournament. Misfits Premier shouldn't even have been there. You know, they were a bit overrated actually as it was. And what did you know, Veteran? They only went and won the whole motherfucking thing and 3-0 swept the final against the winner of the Fnatic versus SK match. So start us there, Veteran, because you all know the way you've branded yourself, Veteran. You've gone the very dangerous route, my friend. Your route is the LS, the Monty. It's the route where people take it that you think you know the most about the game. So if you are ever wrong, God forbid that. Now, you will notice, by the way, I've made my brand so that even when I'm wrong, somehow in some fucked up counterintuitive way, it strengthens my brand, which you know what, I'm wrong a lot. So my brand's strong as fuck right now. So all I'm saying is this. You have to now, at the beginning, first of all, give us some good reasons as to why things went differently, and then set up again. What was the context of why you didn't think Misfits was going to be the team that would win?
Well, I didn't think Misfits would be the team that would win everything overall. Well, okay, so the problem is the way that Neon and Hiva ended up playing out in play-ins and group stage. Whereas they did have some quite good games, they were mostly just reduced to the Caitlyn games that they were playing in play-ins and groups. And other than that, they seemed like a completely different set of players than they were in the LFL. Where in the LFL, they were like rocks. for most of LIDER wasn't even that much of a rock in the LFL, but these two guys were basically never really dying in lane, and they had really strong performances in team fights later on. You could always rely on Neon and Hiva, and that all collapsed the moment that they hit EU Masters, and that was the biggest worry, because the way people had been attacking Misfits Premier in the LFL was that they would attack their top section, and mid lane would become a bloodbath, and then sometimes it wouldn't matter because Neon and Hiva would be able to push through anyway. But generally speaking, you could essentially rely on Dan and Obsess dying a few times in the early game. And the moment that their bot lane also collapsed, it kind of became like LIDER alone for a while. And if that continues for the rest of the tournament, then I would have been worried about them versus teams like Fnatic, who would actually be able to who actually have really
and
good
had
game
beaten
plans
them as
coming
well.
in. Yeah. And teams like Rogue, I think anyone would have bet on Rogue versus Misfits Premier in a best-of-5 scenario. And then when you get to Mad Lions, which is the example that you brought up, and everyone's saying that they could have done something, you could see them kind of doing the same strategy. I don't necessarily buy it, because I actually think LIDER's champ pool counters every single aspect of Pretty's champ pool, and that differential is going to become too much for them at a point. But the moment that we hit the offline stage, it was like the Neon and Hiva from the LFL were back. So Misfits suddenly looked like the absolute strongest roster on paper again. Even if there were, obviously we can talk jungle issues for days, but not all of the best junglers in the tournaments didn't actually make it to the finals. So that didn't seem to be such a differentiating factor as the strength of solo lanes. And Misfits ended up having two of the better solo lanes of the tournament, plus they ended up with the strongest bot lane in the final four. So at that point, they were just going to win no matter what. I don't think Yoppa being there would have done much, because I actually know that they were planning to do some pretty fucked up shit where they were going to put like Yoppa mid lane in certain matchups to try to avoid the fact that LIDER hard counters Pretty's entire champ pool. But I don't think it would have been enough given how Neon and Hiva stepped up. Stepped up once we hit the offline stage. So.
Okay. LIDER, what do you think? Would the semi-finals have been different if Yoppa had got his visa?
I doubt it, to be honest. I think our first game in Plains, or I think it was Plains, we played against Mad Lions and we did pretty good against them. Or not the first, it was the third game. We did all around the board, we did really well against them. They had Yoppa as well there. And even before we went to the offline section of the tournament, no team wanted to really scrim us, we were without scrims, but Mad Lions scrimmed us a couple of games and they got completely stomped into the pavement. So I don't think Yoppa being there would have changed anything.
I have to say though that the initial 3 games Mad Lions played in play-ins was complete garbage. They had Yoppa on tanks permanently and they had no clue what they were doing, and then they came with this weird Zillion Hecarim strategy that they spammed until someone banned it, and they managed to make it through anyway. But
the thing is...
Can I just say, we had about 3 scrims, from the end of LFL until we played EU Masters playoffs. Well, when I say playoffs, I mean semi-finals, so the LAN portion. And there were teams that didn't want to scrim us because they thought they were going to play us later in the tournament. Right. So, the fact that we had 3 scrims is just utterly ridiculous. And honestly, the way those games went against Mad Lions, bot lane was so dominant that I actually don't think it would have changed the result at all.
Yeah.
The thing is, I think they actually had a better chance by doing these swaps because it caught us really off guard, But Samux really inted by stepping out of the bush, so he gave us the free win right there. The Vladimir should have died. He TP's back, and then he dies again, and the game is really over for him, But then he steps out of the bush, and then he's fine. It's okay. And our bot lane gets 1 billion playthings and has 2 items at 10 minutes. So I think if they didn't step out of the bush, things could have gone differently. But by doing this, even with their off-roll top laner, the autofill, I think they had a better chance than with how they would have had with Yoppa.
Okay. What about when as I alluded to before, you might have played Fnatic in the final, you did play them in the group stage, right? In your group, that was one of the factors that made people not as hyped for the playoffs, as they all thought Rogue was going to be the super good team in your group, and this was the region. Right? What do you think along these lines? This is for both of you. Just jump in wherever it makes sense. What do you think, LIDER, of how the group went?
We obviously all thought that Rogue would be the best. We expected them to go to be first seed, and then it would have been closer against Fnatic. Like Fnatic actually played a lot better than we expected. Like they were so much better than even the games Rogue played in these group stages. Like they were so much better. I think they were so more their fundamentals, and they played really well by the book. But and then Rogue was just, I don't know, first the int in draft, I think, and then I guess they win against the team that shouldn't be there. I don't know what team it was again. And then they play against us, and then I don't know, like the draft was good, I'm not gonna lie, I think, but there were some people inting builds that made it really hard, and then they were really bloodthirsty for kills for some reason. I don't know, like we didn't believe in ourselves, I'm not gonna lie. Like we as a team thought we would, honestly, after our Fnatic loss, we were really shaken by it. I don't think we even thought that we could win against Rogue. So we just tried the Pantheon Talia combo and said, let's just flip it from the start, and let's see what happens. It started off really badly, and throughout the whole game, I didn't think we would win at all. Like, no matter what, I wasn't thinking that we would win. So when we won, like, it really hit me, like how the fuck did we win? Like, and I'm not gonna lie, winning against Rogue felt much better than winning the whole finals.
Just because it was so implausible that would happen.
I mean, I think this was the biggest upset. Like nobody believed in us. We were the underdogs, and Rogue was supposed to be the favorites of the whole tournament, and then they just get kicked out of the tournament after 3 games. Like, how sad is that?
Did you see that game, Thorin?
I did not, mate. What happened?
They were insane. Like, I think when you guys ended, Rogue had 27 kills to your 6 or something like this, like that, and it was 4 on you and 2 on Dan. Like they weren't slightly behind. Their bot lane was 2 and 16. Like they were monster behind, and they managed to win purely through 1-3-1 split pushing, and the fact that Rogue were never able to get the 4-1 off that they wanted to do to lean towards Dan on Nico. They just greeded way too hard with their ultimates to try to kill LIDER on top side every time, instead of just pressuring him off the wave, grouping mid and then leaning bot, and that would relieve the pressure that Nico's putting on Vlad, which is the big part where their draft really fucked up. Like, there's nothing that Vlad could do there. Like, he even had the absolute best possible thing he could have had, which was 3 Cloud Drakes, which somewhat would prevent the Nico from kiting him as well as otherwise, but it really didn't matter. So they had to relieve pressure on that matchup, but because they could never get this 4-1 off, they could never do that, and you just saw a lot of desperation plays from them, and eventually you guys just split pushed them to death, which, as for an indicator, is not even something that they do in North America. But there are just 2 solo laners on Misfits that naturally tend towards playing the split push playstyle anyway. Dan's always been the player that has played these champions that spike really hard on 1 or 2 items and then just own the side lane. That's always been how he's played ever since he came up on the initial Origin roster. And you just look at Leader's champ pool, and every single one of those is an assassin split pusher of some kind. So even the way that he plays Ryze, he basically plays it like it's an assassin. So both of these guys, naturally speaking, the game will end up going into a 1-3-1 anyway, if these guys are in control of the team. So just a combination of these 2 things, and that one pick and draft of the Nico into Vlad thing, like, really swung it in your favor. I don't think any other team would have executed it the way that you guys executed it, to be honest.
I think at this level of League of Legends, individual skill plays a huge part, and this team was built with that in mind. So I feel like even when we're behind, we will go for plays that other teams will not, because there is a confidence within the team of individual skill, and I feel like you need to take these risks to come back in the game. And I feel like because our team are very mechanically good, they will try and make those plays, and I feel like we are a team that will come back more often as a result of that.
By the way, in line with what you were saying earlier, InnerFlame, like about the whole scrim scenario, etc., coupled with what he's saying here about, he expected to lose to Rogue in that kind of a setting. Was this actually, as a whole, did people feel as though this was like a miracle run out of nowhere? Was it not supposed to happen?
Well, I feel like we struggle against teams that can slow down the game really well, and I think Fnatic are a team that could do that. And we even said in Leicester that we would rather play against SK than play against Fnatic, just for the pure reason that we felt that Fnatic are much better at slowing down the game, and SK are a team that make a lot more mistakes, even though they are a very good team at pressing their advantage too. But we prefer playing against those types of teams, right? So, yeah, I thought Fnatic was a bad matchup for us. I think everyone in the team thought Fnatic was a bad matchup too. So the kind of preconception of Rogue was that they were a team like that too, but we had limited play against them, especially recently. We had no scrims at all, right? So, you know, we felt that way, and obviously everyone was bigging up Rogue. Everyone thought Rogue would, you know, wipe the tournament. So I'm sure there was, you know, a lot of feeling like that in the team, you know. So that was kind of our mindset going into it.
At the start of the season, I was rating Misfits Premier pretty highly, and at one point I said that I thought the finals of EU Masters would be Larson versus LIDER, and that tweet got laughed at like fuck. So it definitely kind of beat everyone's expectations that Misfits Premier would like win the whole thing, because the reaction at that point was that there were a lot of like players on the team people weren't completely convinced about, and LIDER was one of them. People were kind of convinced about Neon and Heaver, but like Neon doesn't even have like the best reputation among players right now anyway. So it didn't really even depend who you talk to. The vast majority of people wouldn't have expected Misfits to even be in the top 4, let alone win the whole thing. So I'd say it was an upset for sure.
Okay. Right, if we talk a bit about the other semi-final then, and then we'll move into the final and get into all the good stuff. So when Fnatic played SK, right, InnerFlame, give me as a neutral observer, although obviously you didn't want in theory Fnatic to make it to the final. What did you think of this semi-final?
Well, you were sitting next to me, Veteran.
Yeah.
What was your take?
I mean,
what was your external
my
take on
take
this?
was that, so the thing that you and me disagree on big time, I think, for them is that I think Shikari really cost them that series, and Shikari's champ pool specifically is terrible into Sakura's champ pool. And I think this was such a huge defining factor there. I know Joe rates Shikari pretty highly, and he has had some pretty good performances this split. But I think in that series, the top lane difference mattered a lot. And it's a huge thing for SK, because they actually have no idea how to set up the map, even with a significant top lane advantage. So Sakura isn't at the point where he can even perform well on team fights with his split-pushing champ pool, then they'll actually very comfortably lose the game. And there just wasn't any decent responses to his champ pool from Shikari. So
I'm very happy this series obviously happened. I'm very happy that we didn't play SK in the semi-finals for the pure reason that we saw what their draft priority was in the semi-finals, and we based our finals drafts, so I assume Jesse based his final drafts on that, and that he would, you know, prioritize Jace, for example, right? And we kind of took advantage of that. So I agree. You know, there was a bit of a top lane difference, and you know, Shikari had fantastic performances for us last year, and I think he's a very underrated UK player. 1v1 Dalfari the whole of last year, but he didn't have a good series. You know, and that definitely cost. That did cost Fnatic the series. Yeah. I also, I think Maggie Felix, he played well, but I think he could have pushed his advantages a little better as well. Adam, I think you picked up on this as well, didn't you? I think you.
What I thought about this series was that Fnatic bot lane was playing really bad. I think Xmati was the choker on this team this time around. I think Xmati is really good, but what happened the first game should never happen, you know? Like, it was really crazy. And then he didn't flash sometimes. I don't know, I think maybe his nerves got to him or something. And the thing with Shikari is, I think he's really good. I played on a team with him, but his biggest issue is probably that when his team gets really pressured, like he seems that something is going wrong on the other side of the map, he starts to get really pressured and not play properly as well, you know? Like, I think like nobody should ever give up 200 CS or be below 200 CS or 100 CS in a game, no matter what matchup it is. It just comes down to what the team says. I think the team might be the issue, or he himself is calling that he can try to look here or try to look there, or like cannon flank or something. But I think just the nerves, like he got really pressured under that. His whole team was losing except mid lane. I think mid lane was actually doing fine, but of course he doesn't precious his advantages, but he always plays consistently okay, you know? Like he plays always good, I think.
Okay. Veteran, this
Xmati's-
was supposed to be a matchup that was in their favour, right? You said Xmati was the best ADC left in the tournament, right? When there was four teams left.
Well, then I saw how Neon played against Mad Lions. It's like, okay, well, never mind. Neon is back. The Xmati is a really curious case because it feels like when his team is doing well, he does incredibly well. But if his team starts struggling over the course of like a playoff series like we saw there, then yeah, Xmati's performance does actually dip. That's actually historically true as well. It's kind of a little bit different to choking. It does seem like he's a pretty mentally dependent player. And I still, like, I guess Xmati is my equivalent of Shikari then for InnerFlame. I still think that Xmati is a really good AD carry, and I still think that he does deserve shots to go even further in EU Masters, and potentially maybe he could start playing in LEC one day, but this problem still clearly exists. I also want to say I think Dan performed really well in that series, but jungle became a cancer use as well the more the tournament ended up going on. So it's really whatever. But Xmati is a really interesting one because I actually agree with Leader that he didn't have a good series. But I feel like that's kind of predictable at this point. If the first game's going poorly, then I don't think he's going to have a good series. He won't be the player that steps up. And then you saw the way that Neon played versus Mad Lions, and it was quite clear who the best AD carry in the top 4 was.
Hmm. I'd like to say that I think Dan deserves a shout out as well for what he's kind of done for that team, because I believe that he took a year out of League of Legends, right, to pursue a PUBG career, if I'm not mistaken. Right?
He played on Wind and Rain last year as well, but he was dividing time between that and PUBG. But when Fnatic gave him the offer in the off season, he fully committed to League of Legends again. So.
Yeah, I don't think you see many players who leave the game, like at least don't commit their full time towards League of Legends, and then come back and still be very good. So I was very surprised to see that. Shout out to him for that, because I think he was maybe the most influential member of that team.
He has dramatically improved as a jungler. I used to rate him, but I wouldn't put him on lists. But he was a jungler that I would theoretically take, because I feel like I could teach him how to play the actual jungle itself. But there's a certain type of personality that I think is really beneficial to have for a jungler. I think that jungle is probably the best role to have your in-game leader in, and Dan actually has this really good leadership personality in game. He can be a bit of a dick, but like a lot of the best leaders in the US are a bit of a dick. But you can't really teach that kind of personality archetype and that kind of confidence. And Dan has always had that, and he's always been very receptive to learning about the game. So I had no doubt in my head that he could end up being a really, really good jungler. And this year he is now actually, as a jungler, really, really good as well. So he's not just that he has the personality archetype. He's a phenomenal jungler. He was winning, I think, every single game he won his jungle matchup fairly hard. And sometimes it wasn't even close. Like he would just free quadrant for the entire game. So I do hope he gets opportunities. I do want to say, if I have a hot take, if anything, from this tournament, that if you put Dan on Fnatic's main LEC lineup, I actually think you solved the vast majority of
there we go.
There we go. I'm not joking. I'm not joking. If you put him in, I'm telling you, you will solve most of Fnatic's problems that they have right now. I'm not joking about that.
I appreciate you're not joking. It's just that no one else in the entire world is going to actually take that idea into practice. Like, obviously, Fnatic isn't at all. So sadly,
I mean, the leader hot take worked out on this one, so I have to get a new one now, because everyone fucking agrees with that one. So I have to be hipster about someone else now. So now it's going to be Dan. Dan, you're the new target. All right, don't fuck up.
I will say this. Here's all you need to know, Veteran. Like, I learned over the years, most people aren't going to be as honest with their opinions as we are, but there are ways that they subtly do the same thing. So all I'll say is this: on many episodes, this split of this show, you did basically say that you didn't think Broxer was a top player, and no one argued, but they also never argued, which is the point. Like, every time you were like, and my top 4 junglers would be these people, even when Fnatic was like the 3rd ranked team, no one else was going, but what about Broxer? Where's it? Like, I will just say no one wanted the argument put that way. So that's the suspicious part to me, I will say.
What was the analogy you used in Leicester? It was something like, Broxah is a player who connects the dots but never draws the picture. Something like that, right?
No,
Yeah.
he can connect the dots, but he can't put the dots in himself. Other people have to put the dots for him. He can connect them, but other people put the dots in for him. Dan can put the dots in and then connect the dots.
Here's the difference. Broxah is basically the character out of X-Men called Pyro, because all he could do is, if fire had been created already, he could channel the fire. But he's not the Human Torch. He can't generate the fire himself. See, I crossed two different franchises there to give you the analogy, because you have to understand, the kids watching this show, they don't know anything about the game either, so superhero movie analogies is about as close as we can get to explaining something to these young lads out there. So okay, what about this, Leader? If you had actually played Fnatic in the final, would it have been a good game?
I think we would have lost. I honestly think we just would have lost.
In what area would they have been better?
Really?
Yeah, I honestly think we would have just lost against Fnatic, especially in a best of 3.
We felt really good on the day, but I think they were a team. Well, they are a team with a play style that is good against what we do. So, like I said, they can slow the game down. You know,
we are a bunch of flippers on our team. So, if they actually can slow down the game and not let us flip, I think they just play so consistently by the book so well that they will slowly like choke us out. Like they will gain advantages slowly, and then we will slowly lose the game. That's what I think. We'll just get slowly choked out, and there won't be anything we can do about it.
I disagree entirely, because I think Hexmati is mentally out of the series after the first game. Honestly, after I saw how Neon Heaver played versus Madlands, I wasn't worried about you guys going against either of these two teams.
I mean, of course, if someone is choking, then of course that team just collapses. But if everyone is playing normally, like human beings, then I think it will be hard.
After that Rogue win, you know that's not necessarily always the case. But the other thing is that Shikari, I think, is one of the best possible players for Dandan to play up against, because he does not really abuse advantages in lane anywhere near to the extent you have to hit Dandan where he is absolute weakest. Dandan, by the way, is astonishingly aware of where his weaknesses are, actually, after talking to him. That's really rare for a player to actually know like exactly where they are weak right now, which is really good for his future prospects, and explains why he's stayed in the game for so long. So, quick shout out.
I think every single member on Fnatic's roster is not the aggressive player, you know? They're like, they don't press advantages, they're just stable.
I would disagree with that, but yeah,
would you? Why not? Like Maggie
the way
Dan
plays jungle compared to any other jungle except for Blue Azure in the tournament is incredibly aggressive. This guy will live in your jungle if he has the opportunity to do so.
Dan just plays correct. I think he always...
But I mean, aggressive and passive are like memes. There's a correct way to play, and Dan plays the correct way, and that means that he will take aggression when aggression should be done.
Of course, but from the laners, I don't think any of them are crazy, you know, like to do to dive or to do plays alone. Like they play as a team. I think like that's the thing. They just play as a team and not individuals. And I think Dan is like leading them.
Yeah, he is. I mean, I assume he is, but
yeah, like from what I've heard, like the mid laner doesn't talk much. The support doesn't talk much. The top laner just gives addition like TP and stuff. So I think Dan is just doing everything for their team, honestly. If they put Dan out of Fnatic Academy, like I think these 4 players won't be good together. Like if they put, I don't know, like I don't know what genre they put in anyone besides Dan, I guess, then I think it will be hard for them.
I completely agree with you there. So then I'm kind of curious why you think that is enough if the people that if the chess pieces he's playing with are all fucking pawns and you guys have like 4 queens because you've just outlaned them at this point. Like I don't see why you would think that they would win then.
I mean, we're coin flippers. Our queens are coin flippers. So
exactly. half the time they are pawns, and he doesn't know which half the time that is. So
that's well, we got their backs, you know. Like if 2 of our queens are pawns, then the other 2 queens will like take over, you know. Vice versa.
One of the pawns will get to the end of the chessboard, right?
It's the tier 3 Dower Dive that he tries 15 minutes into the game. He's just trying to queen himself, you know. It works out.
That one was crazy. Like when I heard this, I was all fake. I'm not gonna lie, like yeah.
All right.
So okay, then let's talk about the final then. So Like, LIDER, obviously the meme is that you only know how to play like 2 champions in League of Legends. Now, you didn't help yourself by just playing 1 in the final, but okay, come on, give us some insight here. Like, have people misjudged you? Have the memes taken control?
I mean, it's a meme, you know, and I can live by it. Like, I've always been an OTP or 2-trick or stuff like that. But I think I play a lot of champions, but they're like one-dimensional, you know, they're like either melee bruisers or split-pushing mages, so I don't really play control mages. Well, I mean, I do play control mages, but I prefer assassins, you know, because I can do more as an individual than as a team on these champions. And the reason why I only picked 1 champion in the finals is because they banned my other champions. And Yasuo and Aurelia is open, then of course I go for Aurelia, because this champ can actually do a lot in team fights, and it's pretty strong, I think. As long as I don't die early, it's fine. And ban the crocodile, and it's okay.
Ban the crocodile.
Ban the
This champ
crocodile,
is just unskilled.
Yeah.
It's too unskilled.
Come on,
mean,
Veteran.
okay,
if
so
someone's
in a way
coaching
that-
against someone playing the same champion over and over again, you're supposed to get better against it.
But
with your
you've already
drafts.
banned Field of the Champions, though. That's the thing. Like, it's
True.
not like he got this pick because like it kept getting through. It kept getting through because all the other picks weren't able to get. But I have to say, so the idea that he is like a 2-trick was true like a year and a half ago, and the amount of time that it's taken for him to expand his champ pool to the level that it is at right now is actually fucking phenomenal compared to other mid. Okay, Joe's vanished. No, Joe's back. Compared to other mid laners. So you take Nemesis, for example. Nemesis basically stuck with the same core of 3 champions for the entire year that he spent on Mad Lions. And he was on a really phenomenal team that you would assume would push him really hard. But you actually saw those champ pool issues punish him pretty severely when he came onto Fnatic initially in the split. Humanoid went from 2 champions to basically the same amount of champions that LIDER did in a year and a half in, I'd say, like 2.5 years, and that was still like a pretty astonishing rate of improvement. I still think Humanoid is really fucking good, but the rate of improvement on his champ pool issues that LIDER did is one of the reasons why I started rating him so highly and saying that he could end up being tier 1 in 2010, which, by the way, you have to be tier 1 next year at some point.
2020, yeah.
Well, 2020, yeah. I mean, season 10. I
Right,
just get
there we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, you
Go
want to
ahead,
come?
sorry.
Yeah, no. Go in
Just
on
finish.
that.
Just finish.
Well, I mean, so that kind of rate of improvement is only possible because he is so confident in almost every single play that he makes in solo queue, and he learns from that obscenely fast. And so he like currently all of his champions, yes, they're kind of like assassins. Even the way that he plays Ryze right now is pretty assassin-y. But like champions like Ryze are his gateway to playing other champions. He can go to champions like Azir. He could maybe pick Lissandra if they stop telling him to pick Aftershock on it. He has gateways to expanding his champ pool into mages. And once he starts doing that, there's no doubt in my head that he will pick up all of these champions relatively fast. Once it clicks, it's going to click pretty heavily for him, and if the rate of improvement that he's shown continues to improve, he won't have champ pool issues next year. It will vanish very fast.
What I believe in as a player and a mid laner, like, I think everyone will disagree with this, you know, because they think mid laner should be able to play every single champion because it's the role that opens up different playstyles all the time and stuff. But what I believe in is, if I can play a champion, even if it's like, if I spend a lot of time, like 100 games, only playing 3 or 4 different champions, or like enough champions so they can't ban me out, and I will always have one or another champion to play. I think if I'm so good at it that I can play bad matchups and go either even or ahead, and then I know my champion well, you know, so I can pull off stuff that normal people that only plays it, you know, that can say that,
Yes.
yeah, I play this champion does. If I can play it really well, I can be an X factor, you know. I can always be an X factor,
Sure.
and I can know my limits better than everyone else. So
Sure.
if I just don't like that people that play many champions, but they are like okay on it, you know, and then they have like one pocket pick or something. I like to have like many pocket picks that I can play into bad matchup
Sure.
or good matchups all the time. I think most mid laners will disagree with me on this, but it's been working out for me. So
like in general, if people want a reference point, it's the difference between like Power of Evil and NateDOhDoubleG. Like NateDOhDoubleG will always have like 10 plus champions played because he's just going for whatever the counter pick is in the particular comp they're playing. Whereas Power of Evil, if his champions that he likes to play are available, he is going to play those even if to someone else it's a losing matchup for the reasons LIDER said. Like he thinks he can make it a winning matchup. He thinks he can execute something within the time span of the lane phase that will make it not a losing matchup. It's a skill matchup to him. So like I would agree. Not a lot of people think the way you think, LIDER. A lot of people prefer like global meta thinking, and you should just be good on whatever's good now. It's a different approach.
And that's also what makes a player like Faker such a rare talent as well, because he plays everything so well, you know. And I think that's what separates a player like Faker from others as well. So
yeah, but this is the thing. LIDER doesn't have to look the way that you approach the game. You don't have to look to be the next NukeDuck or PoE, or think that these are your only two options. You legitimately could be the next Cabs. You legitimately could be on the next kind of level where we're comparing you to Faker if you don't get yourself in this way. You see how I compared you to Pretty in the sense that Pretty is kind of like the mage equivalent of you, and he's always stuck in that chample. That could end up being your future if you keep up with this attitude. And you really don't have to. You are definitely talented enough to expand it to the point where you don't just have to be okay on all of these champions. You can legitimately be the best on all of these champions if you really want it. If you really want it. You don't have to settle for being NukeDuck. You can surpass him. In the next year and a half, you can definitely surpass him. There's no doubt in my head about that. The only enemy that you have to that is gating yourself with the mentality you have right now. But you don't have to do that. You are way more talented than PoE was at your age. Way more talented.
And then obviously he's like, but how do I learn this ability, Veteran? Not from a Jesus. Like, anyway, there's the purple memes for everyone. There we go. You knew it was coming in InnerFlame at some point in time. I kept it tame.
I was waiting for one of them. You know? There's a few things I've got on the list. That was one of them. That's
what do you think about this whole topic then? Come on, Wayne. You're someone who obviously has an invested reason to care, but at the same time, you've seen a lot of League of Legends. So what do you think on this?
Adam, do you remember stuff like the Yasuo quota?
I do remember the Yasuo quota. Yeah.
Yeah. No, we're very much on Veteran side. So good. We recognize his talent, and we know that he will expand it, and when he puts his mind to it, he can play anything. But I still think he's very raw as a player, even though he's already won EU Masters, right? Which is a huge accolade, and definitely LEC ready in certain aspects, right? But I still think you have a long way to go as well. So.
All right, mate. So the champion pool is the biggest issue, I guess.
It's one thing
for you. It is. Because you've perfected your current champ pool, so what else is the issue going to be?
Win and win and win and win. That's all.
Yeah, but you have to make sure that you're insulated from changes in the meta, or you will end up like Pretty at some point.
Of course, if there's...
I love you, by the way, Pretty. I do love you, but you are gated by the exact same fucking thing. I'm just saying, if you are watching this, you're gated by the exact same fucking thing, but on the other side of the fucking coin, okay? So,
if there's changes, of course I will like... If it's like, I don't think like the meta will change there where there will only be Syndra and Orianna, like there are so many champions that has come out, like there will always be a counter to it or shit, like if these champions become meta, the other champions will become a meta as well.
The closer we get to Worlds every fucking year, the closer we get to Syndra or Orianna meta. So for the love of God, do not say that, because in a couple of months, I guarantee you'll be regretting saying that.
Syndra and Orianna,
I don't know how, but it always does that.
Azir and Echo will be meta if these two champions are meta. So
okay, you just revealed some champions that no one actually knew that you played. But yeah.
I play every.
I knew you played Azir. I didn't know that you actually played Echo.
I played a lot of Katarina. When
Azir is your gateway drug into being able to perfect champions like Orianna, like Syndra, and that puts you on that allows us to build like way better rosters around you than otherwise. By the way, that allows way better.
I can play Azir. I think I'm really good on this champion, but if my other champions are open, why would I pick it?
Wait a minute, you're practicing Katarina secretly. What is this when you're doing like the fucking bronze to challenger? Why the fuck you play Katarina mid?
If only that was a joke, Duncan. If only that.
I wish it was.
It's fun. Like I play Fizz, I play Echo, I play a Katarina. Like all of the champions are fun. Like.
All right, Selfie, calm down. Jesus. When the last time, so Thorin knows I worked as Selfie. Joe probably remembers I was Selfie. I don't even fucking know if you were playing the game back then, because you actually kind of came out of nowhere. But with Selfie on Shulker, it was a Syndra Orianna meta, and Selfie was basically like, I'm just gonna play Katarina or Fizz into Syndra every single time it was up. So we basically never play. Oh, Corky is the one that he really wanted to play Katarina into every time. So you're reminding me a lot of that
This
now.
matchup is so nice for Katarina. Like if they pick Corky, like I know that my
There we
opening
go.
is open.
Can we change the subject?
My opening is open.
No, this is important because we went 10-0 in the regular split, and guess what happened in playoffs? Meta completely changed and we lost immediately. I'm just saying, you can't rely.
What I appreciate though, Veteran, is I'm always wondering with every pro player, right, when do we enter their fantasy world? Because one of the great things about being somebody's trying to accomplish anything, by the way, is you've got to be driven by, imagination, the dreams of ambition, thoughts that you could always improve. You've got to visualize the game. A lot of it's about the imagination, but the problem is, right, I was thinking he's the most reasonable player I've ever met, Veteran. He's admitted that he actually thinks Fnatic would have won the final. Like his team probably shouldn't even have been that far. It was all like kind of like everything just came out of nowhere. I'm thinking, fucking hell, we've got the most reasonable player ever. And then all we had to do was go in the champ pool direction, and we're just full blown delusion completely. Like, listen, if Rookie is playing fucking, Lissandra, then I play fucking Amumu into it at the level 2 flash. Like, or what? If you can do that, you are the greatest player of all time. But that is an outrageous worldview to have. The thing is, sadly, because they've all turned against you and they're all trying to tell you not to do it, I just want to be the shit starter and be like, nah, just believe in yourself, do whatever you think. Be the best you can be. Like, that's what I want to happen secretly.
It doesn't matter. Joe pays him. Joe will just reinforce all of this after the show, no matter what. It's all fine.
Okay, that's true. That is true. Right, okay, what about SK then? Was SK actually any good by the end? Because this final was a bit underwhelming from them, I thought.
God, Okay. You guys are pretty dumb around the map, but SK are phenomenally retarded in the way that they play the game in even basic manners. But Joe wants to say something, so go on.
Can I just say, mid laner is a bruiser abuser, and he didn't pick the bruisers.
So, okay.
He made the classic mistake, which, by the way, all young players out there, don't ever do this, which is when you have a literal limitation to your game, and it's real, it's not a meme, it's not a narrative, if you go out of your way to prove it doesn't exist, you can see where this is heading. That's what we call a recipe for disaster. Like, well, I don't know why people insist on doing that. Like, no, I'm just good at everything. It's like, all right then, mate. Well, let's see how this works out. So, come on then, lay out the game for us. What should have been different here in InnerFlame?
Okay. Not that I think it really would have changed the outcome of the game, but I think their chances would have been better if they played bruisers mid lane. If they didn't play around bot side, which obviously I think our bot lane was definitely a lot stronger. I'll be honest. I don't think Fnatic coming bot was really going to change the outcome of the lane. So I think he should have tried to get the same advantage in a different lane. And I think that's what they did. I think that's what their biggest mistake was, and it's also what we thought going into the series. At the same time, everyone on our team did their job so well. I'm not even sure how they could have even won the series. Whether that was Dan, who got 3 blue sides and got counterpicked 3 games in a row, but just did his job, cleared waves, scaled, carried in team fights, or whether that was Adam, playing safely when he needed to, or when it was bot lane just absolutely shitting all over them. I felt, again, Patrick just kind of facilitating everything. I felt like everyone did their job, and I felt like we matched up so well against SK, and that everyone did their job so well that I don't actually see any way that they could have won that series.
So game 2, game 3, they should have just straight up split the map top side and just started on your blue buff. They legitimately had that option. I have no idea why they didn't do it, particularly in game 3, where I would have killed myself if I was obsessed having to play jungle there, because you're either going to get free quadranted or they're going to split the map in favor of Jace. And this Rise already revealed that he doesn't actually know how to play the matchup in lane. I've already talked to Dan about that. Even the moment that I saw Aftershock Rise versus Jace, I knew he had no idea what he was doing there. But I mean, he still did scale and he still did his job in split push later on. But they could have really fucking abused this setup if they wanted to. But it seems like after the first game, where they did a bit of a BG in draft and they ended up with Soraka Ezreal bot, and then Soraka Ezreal didn't reset on the initial crest that Sejuani helped them get, and then no, it wasn't Sejuani, it was Jarvan. And then he had to help the midsection because they were addicted to doing this Azir versus Irelia pick for some weird reason that is always just going to interrupt your jungler to have to reset at 420 instead of way before the 4-minute mark, which he really should be doing in all of these matchups. They decided they had to just play Band-Aid for bot lane for the rest of the series or something like that. Like, you guys were living in their heads after the state of bot in the first game. And I think that just really fucked them up, because they should just be splitting the map permanently in favor of Jace and playing really hard around that. And I think if they did that, particularly when they moved away from the Soraka pick and went like fresh Kai'Sa bot lane, stuff like this, where it's way harder for you guys to just accrue advantages the way you did, then I think they had a shot at winning the series. Their game, it always, for me, SK always comes back to the series they played versus LDLC, where they did actually get Sakura ridiculously far ahead and unlocked him from his lane really early on, but they still permanently grouped versus LDLC's team comp, and it was the absolute dream for LDLC. They ended up having to steal Baron in like the first game of that series in a scenario where they were like 8k gold ahead at one point because they had no idea how to play out the map setup. So with that in mind, it may not have been enough even if they did play their early game plan out properly, but they never even played their early game plan out properly. So this team just seemed really stupid on so many levels when we got to the finals.
Okay. What did you think, Leader? What was the final like in this sense?
What I think is, like, I know how SK plays, you know, like, I know how the jungler plays, and I know what their mid laner does, and I know that my bot lane is 10 times enemy bot lane as well. So when they picked the Azir, I always knew, like, they were looking to, like, neutralize me, you know, because I can never go in onto Azir. And if they split map, like, of course, like, Jarvan would have had less options to go bot or mid, and I think they really like to play all over the map, you know, like, I think Frennick really likes to play all over the map, and he's permanently around the mid. Like, they look at me as an inter that dies to every single gank, so all I had to do is not go aggressive at all and just farm. And my bot lane was just stomping enemy bot lane, so I just knew I just sit in my wheelchair and let myself get carried, so that's fine. And then I don't know, like, first game they played Sejuani. Second, I don't know what happened second game. Like, a BG happened in bottom lane, I think. Like, Kai'Sa got double kill. It got hard. We missed some engages, but we still won. Third game, I'm not gonna lie, the game should have been over for us at minute 2. When Jarvan went red into our Raptors, the game should have been over. But he counter-inted, and then he made the game winnable for us. Like, Sejuani should have been so far behind, but he did one small mistake, and that was coming mid, and my jungler is mid as well. So he died, and then I got ahead. My jungler got a crab as well, when he never should have gotten that crab, and he got enemy Raptors as well. He was back into the game, and now I think just the game's over. It's GG. So, and I think Sakura is really good in lane. But when I was watching Fnatic's game, he doesn't know when to group and when to split push. Like, most of his champions are always split push, like Jason Rice. Like, he just play for split push. But I think he might as well just become scared as well, you know, like maybe my team gets engaged on and then we lose and I can't do anything. Maybe I should have just grouped here, you know. So he just takes a safe option of just grouping mid and just chilling with them. But of course, it's wrong. I think he plays his lane out really well. He doesn't really die to ganks. He does 1v1 always well. I thought Frennick was actually playing around top. But after watching the VODs, I saw that Frennick really wasn't pathing top at all. And he was gaining his advantages himself. So I was really impressed by him. But after lane, he becomes more of a lost cause, I think. That's my take on Sakura, at least.
Yeah, I mean, like, the third game was so unfathomably difficult to play out the first clear. And like, I was thinking the best thing Obsessed could have done would probably just be full clear top side and then try to match gank top, and then either he is match ganking top versus Jarvan, or Jarvan is taking his quadrant bot side and he can actually relieve the pressure on Rise and swing the match up. But that's probably like the best thing he could have done, and even then there are a lot of holes in that. Like, it was so, like, you guys had no winning lanes until level 3 basically. But if he did that, then you would actually have, and Jarvan did show topside, then you would have the window versus Azir, where after the counter gank top, and both junglers match towards bot side, you could actually contest Raptors at that point and obsess wouldn't be counter far behind. That was like the only thing like I think you could maybe do, but that's still a bit of a flip. Like it was such a difficult draft, but SK had no idea what they were doing really. They chose like even going 3 quadrants there, I'm not even sure is like the best thing that they could have done with that. I think the game is completely over for Dan if they play it out a bit differently. But you know they have full breadth of the map, and then they entered their advantage way anyway, and that wasn't even like the best advantage they could have gotten. So
what I didn't understand is that they drafted to get that top lane advantage, and they didn't play around top side. You know, it
blew my mind.
Yeah, I couldn't really understand it.
I mean, I think you guys were just in their heads after what happened first game. What happened first game, by the way, is that Sivir got 2 Qs off on Soraka because DOS did like the weirdest path I ever saw in my life after he saw Sivir around mid lane, and he'd already burned pots, and then they got in lane. Fennec had to sit them on their initial crash, but then they decided not to reset, and I think they decided not to reset because they wanted to greed for an immediate Sheen back, but you have no mana left on Soraka, plus she's already had to burn pots on the level 1, so then they were just playing under tower and they couldn't do anything about it. They couldn't do anything about it at that point, and they couldn't get the reset off that they wanted because obviously it's the Azir versus Irelia matchup mid, and Fennec had to sit that after level 3, and Fennec has to delay his fucking reset on that, so Obsess actually has tempo over him, and so now bot is fucked, jungle is fucked, and then bot gets completely abused by your bot lane, and then I think you're just in their heads after that, and they decide we have to go bot lane no matter what. That's the only explanation I have. You just were in their heads after that, and all of that was avoidable. Like I've put steps on how you avoid that in every single part there, but you know they didn't. So whatever. Now after that, they have to kind of like ignore that once you've put him on a tanky matchup bot side where you can be reasonably sure that they're not just going to dive you straight up level 3 on bot side. You just split the map for top. Like once it was fresh Kai'Sa, I don't understand why they kept going bot. They're just going to naturally scale, and you need Sakura. You need Sakura to get monster ahead in the top side matchup. So just split the map, but they never did that.
Being as in the semi-finals, it was their mid laner that was playing Jace in both the games, and they used the top laner for Jace, and they picked it first time every single game here. Were they actually trying to pretend it was going to go mid and then changing it up? Did you know it was going to go top? I mean, InnerFlame, you said that like the semi-final kind of gave you some hints as to what they might do and draft priority. So did you have like a plan in mind for this?
They didn't leave Akali open, right?
They did.
No, they didn't.
Did they?
Did? They did.
No, they
Jace.
banned it.
They did, yeah, because I think they were trying to like bait us.
They banned it every
Making
game.
Akali. Oh, yeah, okay,
Oh,
right,
for
fine.
us,
Yeah,
for us,
right, sure,
for
yeah.
us.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
pretty sure
Oh,
they
yeah,
banned
okay,
it.
yeah. So they tried to, yeah, right. So that just didn't make sense as well because Adam might disagree here, but like traditionally, the new Akali isn't as good into Jace, right? So you know maybe
think
that's
it's
something
even
they could have
better
tried. Yeah, right. Okay.
It's
For
still a
him.
losing matchup.
I'm not saying our opinion or whatever. I'm just saying
sure.
the general consensus is that, and I think maybe that's something they could have tried. I don't know, but like what we did know was that they would prioritize Jason in the top lane, and they let through Ryze and Vladimir, you know, which are two obviously very good champions for us. Could just kind of stall out the game. Are going to be relevant at some point in the game, no matter what. So, yeah, like I said, they didn't play around top side. Dan, I have to give a shout out to this guy, man, because like he got an awful matchup 3 games in a row.
It's not okay.
Okay, well,
Just
okay.
continue.
I don't think it's awful as well.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
fine.
not. I told him about this.
Okay, fine. He got an unfavorable matchup 3 games in a row.
Shit.
Didn't int.
I disagree.
Just scaled, did his job like fantastically, and at the end of the day, he lifted the trophy. Right? You know, he had the most unglamorous job in the team, yet we still won, and I think he played a big part in that.
I think he played a big part in your entire tournament. Like,
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, the vast majority. Like, there are so many other top laners that you could have picked where it would have just ended up being a 4-1 team with everyone complaining about LIDER. But Dan naturally goes for the exact same playstyle that LIDER really likes. So you had a lot of de facto synergy from that. So I think he was really beneficial to you guys to have him on the team. And again, he just from talking to him, he's insanely hyper aware of what his issues are as a player. So there's no doubt in my head that he'll overcome them.
Okay. Right. InnerFlame, actually, one question I wanted to ask you was, what do you actually, if you are a team who's in the position you're in, so you're the academy team of an LEC team now, and there's the national leagues and then the EU Masters, but what people don't seem to fully be aware of is, because there is no more promotion relegation into LEC, the only way people can join these teams is either, in your case, they go from the academy to the main team and it's easy enough, you transfer the contracts, or they have to leave the team they're in now and fully sign with one of those squads. So it actually puts everyone in kind of a weird scenario when they're playing at this level, because on the one hand, do they want to get someone's like Ian, for example, leave the best academy team but then go to the worst LEC team? It's debatable as to whether some people will take that offer. Do they want to try and win the starting spot of their main squad, in which case it really depends what team you have, because obviously if you have like some of the rogue players, for example, were in a bad spot because actually the good player on rogue maybe was in their position. Like, as someone who's a manager in this position, how do you kind of see it? Like, how do you keep hold of talent? What should talent do? What did players at this level do you think?
So, I mean, Spring Split was very eye-opening for us. Obviously, our LEC team didn't perform to many people's expectations, maybe mostly our own. But I think what's important is that you pick up players that care about the bigger picture, and the bigger picture really is the LEC. And I think what's also important is you pick up players in your academy that have aspirations of going into the LEC. And I also think it's very important that you pick up players that are different to your LEC players, so that your LEC players can learn from them, and the same the other way around, right? Last split, we were maybe not as open as we could have been to utilizing substitutions. I don't want to put words into Hussein's mouth, but I think this split, you might see us do things a little differently. We have an exceptional academy team. I think it's important for every team to have an exceptional academy team, for the mere fact that you have depth, you have players you can bring up in certain metas. It's very rare that you find players who can play absolutely everything to an exceptional standard. Like I said, you can name them on your hand, Faker,
Sure.
Someday, whoever, right? But academy investment is super important, and at least the way we do it is all of our contracts are tiered. So you'll have a salary for playing in regional league academy level, and then you also have a salary for playing in the LEC, right? So all of our contracts are tiered in that way, in anticipation that our players could potentially go up and down. And we're not okay with our players not being okay with that mindset. And part of what we call internally, we call it Misfits culture, is that everyone brings a trophy home, whether that's your analyst, your chef, your player, coach, whoever, right? If you played a part in winning that trophy comes home, and that's everyone's trophy, right? So for us, it's important that we have players with that mindset, but at the same time, you want talent. And I think it's really, really hard to find players who are okay with both. And I think what we are very lucky to have is 5 players in our academy who share that vision, and also 5 players in our LEC who share that vision too. At the end of the day, everyone wants to bring a trophy home, and that's going to be our mindset going forward. And that's why I think we will be a dangerous team in Summer Split, because we have depth like other teams do not.
Okay. What do you think on this topic, Veteran? Because like this is a great example of a team where obviously half the problem is, since the main LEC team was supposed to be a super team with all these great players, it means even if you do really well on the academy team, it's hard to know, like, well, how do I get in the main team? Like, obviously LIDER has to literally beat out Feathervan to get the mid lane spot. It's not like he's playing against Pyrian or someone where there's debatable reasons why you could take them out. So what do you think of this scenario? Because the problem I see is, I think for both the players and the orgs, when they're at the academy level, they're in a tough spot, because if you get really, really good talent, they might just leave your team and go elsewhere to get a spot. And if you're a player, unless you're on the right team with the right LEC squad, you basically have to go elsewhere sometimes.
So, I mean, when it comes to Misfits specifically, I don't think that mid lane is even like the area where you would be looking to make changes. I do think that LIDER deserves games in LEC on that merit, and maybe you could look into doing some sort of like rotating thing or something.
He plays some top lane champs, maybe he can go in there, you know.
Well, Soaz is definitely not the problem with Misfits, though. It's another thing, so like there's no reason to like put Dan there. And then Neon is the other like really bright shining star of the Misfits Academy roster. And I don't actually think Hans Sammer is the issue, even though some people that you host a show with, Thorin, seem to keep bringing that shit up, and it pisses me off every time. But the problems with both rosters have been support jungle. Support less so in the academy team. Hiva was one of the best supports that wasn't in LEC last year, and then this year in the LFL, I think he was still fairly consistent. But he showed a lot of. He has shown a lot more flaws than he did last year. And then jungle, I mean, I've been pretty vocal about how I feel about your jungle on both the main team and on the secondary team. And this is the place that would need to be looked at the most, and it doesn't look like that's the place you've developed the best on the academy roster anyway. If there's one guy that definitely wasn't the star of the Misfits Academy roster, it was Obsess. Like, I don't think anyone would disagree with that. And the two best junglers in the tournament were knocked out in the semi-final stage, Blue Azor and Dan. So if we're talking about changes you would make in terms of bringing LEC academy players into LEC, your shining stars who look like they have the most potential to go into the LEC aren't the ones that will end up fixing your roster. So you may just end up putting them on a team that will have the exact same flaws that they did before, and you would just end up having these guys have a pretty meh debut split going in, because it doesn't fix your issues. Leader's very good, but he's not. No one is that good. Like Faker was like fucking 8th, 7th place permanently because the team that was built around him was just bad. It just wasn't well thought out. So,
are you better than Featherman at the moment, Leader?
In some aspects, I think so. Yeah,
Okay.
in some areas, but in other areas, I don't think so.
Okay. Because by the way, that's perfectly fair to say in the context of Featherman's career. Because remember, Featherman was the player that when he got promoted into LCS did say, in a year from now, I will be better than Froggen and Expecka, I think were the two players he picked out. So he's been pretty confident himself in the past.
I don't know if you know, but Featherman is actually the guy that got me into League of Legends. It's in he literally recommended the game to me when he was
made a lot of mistakes in his career. Sure.
Yeah. you personality wise actually remind me of, but I imagine you two are getting along well. But yeah, it's actually quite cool that you're both on the same team, to be honest. That's actually really
Me and him are probably like the closest from academy to main team, like probably in the whole Misfits as well. Like from players wise, me and him are the closest.
Yeah, you might have a lot of him. And he was better than Froggen and Expecka in a year. Don't fuck this up, Leader. Oh,
I won't.
Oh, I mean, to be fair, Frog and Expecka never got carried by Huni, so let's put that to one side a second. I know everyone likes to ignore all those role balance aspects of the team. Also, by the way, as a random aside, you should probably do this actually, Veteran. You would appreciate it out of everyone. There's an episode last year, I think it was the first ever split of Narrative Wake, was the spring split of season 8, and we did one of those mega episodes before I think it was before LCS, right? So it was NLCS. And Cos Featherman had just gone to Clutch Gaming. We had him as one of the guests on there, right? And what's bizarre is when we were talking to him about when he used to be on H2K, dude, he gave the weirdest answers I have ever seen. Because literally, I'm not exaggerating, you'd have to go and check for the wordings. I don't want to try and claim what he said, but the gist was, he thought Odoamne wasn't even a good top laner, and that Odoamne was something weird, like, because he thought Odoamne thought he was a carry player, and that he was just a bad player or something. Like, basically, he had like 180 degrees the opposite of what everyone else would probably say about Odoamne and the team he'd just been on. And so it just made me wonder how Featherman sees the game, because clearly a very different perspective.
I mean, I just really random detour, because I have no idea how I ended up on the topic of this guy, but I actually do think Odoamne was like the best Jace player at the World Championships that we played.
Sure.
So I don't think that there was not a reason for Odoamne to
No, but the thing is, basically, Featherman didn't seem to appreciate at all that Odoamne was like a good low econ top lane. Like, he didn't even seem to know that part existed to Odoamne's game. So it just made me wonder how he played a year in a team with the guy, but he had like such a weird perspective.
Sure. I mean, I wasn't involved in the 2017 team, so I
Sure.
have no idea what was going on the
Sure.
inside, unfortunately. So it's actually really, yeah. And actually, we won't talk about that anyway.
Whatever. We'll put that on one side. I think that's the end anyway. Do we have any parting remarks, leader?
Powerade.
Anyway.
Sponsor me, please.
Yeah,
There you go.
how about we'll leave it at a please sponsor Adam, #Blue Juice,
Yes.
something like that.
Mechanics. Something like that.
This video was kindly supported by Wendelful, Butt Pounder 420, Dean Tanglis, Andreas Snazore Westerlund, JDubs, Chi Mao, Daniel Olivar, OllieJ, Tobias Bernasconi, NateDOhDoubleG, Alexander Rao, and a special thanks go out to Jerky's Minion, weixz, don't know how to say that's like a Chinese name, and Max Laine. Do you want to suggest a topic or a guest for some of my upcoming content? It's going to be a big feature in the next few months for me. Well, my Patreon, that's a feature. Do you want to ask me a question in my monthly AMA? Would you like teasers for my upcoming content? Find out who the next guests are. Maybe you want to take part in that monthly donator discussion with me. Well, if you want any of the above perks, put your money where your mouth is. Support me via the Patreon link below and join the Scrilluminati today.